let's ask the question: who's fact-checking the fact-checkers? The fact-checkers are supposed to be the ones who overlook things, who are watching, who are controlling false narratives. They're making sure false information doesn't get out there. But are they really? Are they really? Where's the one place where you really see fact-checkers? Well, generally on social media, particularly Facebook. Why? Facebook's still the largest platform. They even call themselves Meta now, so another term for another universe, that they're their own universe. And so information comes through, and a lot of people are on Facebook, and they use it because it gathers information together. And so Facebook, in its responsibility, decided they're going to fact-check posts. But are they really fact-checking? That's the question to ask. Because a lot of times we're putting our faith into these fact-checkers. But should you put your faith into these fact-checkers? That is a good question to ask. And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to the social media fact-checkers and that, the answer is no. We shouldn't. We shouldn't be trusting them. You say, why not? They got scientists behind it. Who are you to say that they're not fact-checkers? They're scientists, they're articles. It's like, let me break it down. Let's break it down. Let me give you a couple of examples, and I will show you in Facebook's own words that their fact-checkers aren't fact-checkers. They're there to control a story. They're there to control a meaning. They're there to control what you see, what you hear, and that kind of thing. And they use their fact-checkers and their fact-checking labels to make sure that certain stories, certain news articles, certain things don't get to the forefront. How can this be? Is this actually? Well, let me show you fact-checkers. I wonder, do you remember this story? This happened a little while back. And if you're not familiar with that, let me give you some context to this. This was at Dover Air Force Base. It was the return home of 11 fallen soldiers. And so it was a ceremony as they were brought home. And Biden was at the ceremony, which he should be as the President of the United States. But if you look at that picture, you can quite clearly see that he's got his hand over his heart, which he's supposed to, as respect. But he clearly is looking at his watch. He's looking at his watch. So that story kind of took off at the time, and so fact checkers had to jump in. So I'm going to give you the fact checkers solution on this. So when the fact checkers went through that event and they tried to break it down, say, look how responsible we are as fact checkers, they said we couldn't verify all this. And then even that picture, you said, well, I can't verify that. There's the picture. They would say, well, that picture was taken at the end of the ceremony, and it's kind of at the moment of relaxation at the thing, so it's actually over, and the photo is just a perfect photo. So Biden's hand is actually coming down and the other one hand is coming up at the same time. They're saying that's what's happening. But there's a problem. It is the actual video of the ceremony has Biden checking his watch not once, not twice, but 3 times. 3 times he checks his watch. And so this upset people. This upset the family members and things like that, saying he was being disrespectful. So how did the fact checkers label the story of Biden checks his watch during the ceremony? So let me read the results of the fact checker. It says, our rating, missing context. Missing context, that's what they said. So based on our research, we rate missing context. The claim that Trump saluted the caskets of fallen U.S. service members while Biden checked his watch. The way Biden honored the 11 caskets presented at Dover Air Force Base with a hand over his heart was similar to how Trump paid respects to his fallen service members during his presidency. However, Biden did check his watch at least 3 times, according to photos and videos reviewed by USA Today. Several family members of the fallen service members who attended the ceremony have criticized Biden for checking his watch. The claim was Biden checked his watch, and they're saying missing context. So if you just rate that, you miss context. What context is missed? Let's look at that again. What's the context? He's at the ceremony. They come out. They even state in their own thing that Biden checked his watch 3 times. Why missing context? Because it obscures the point. It obscures it. So they want to say, oh, you're right. Oh, no, you just misunderstood. That's a very common tactic. Misunderstood. Now, what does this have to do with Facebook fact checkers? That was just showing you the credibility of certain fact checkers of itself. But what about Facebook? What about Facebook? Well, there was a case that hit the courts here at the end of last year by a man named Stoncil. Now, Stoncil is a reporter. He did a couple of videos, and in his first video, it came out that his claims were false, are mostly false, is what they were, and is provably false, I think is what it came out as, and missing context is what they did. And so Stoncil, when he first came out with his first video, and you can look this up, and I'm going to get to the point here, he said he kind of let it go. He doesn't like court cases. He kind of let it go, so he let it go. But then the second one happened again, and it came up with missing context. Now, he decided to actually come at these ones and battle these ones. So he went after Facebook and questioned them. And Facebook said, this isn't our issue. We don't do the fact-checking ourselves. And so we put it off to them. So you got to go after them. So we did. He went after the ones who went after his first, called Climate Feedback. That's who they were. And here's the remarkable thing about it. So when he researched it and he went after them and after him, he says the two reviewers, they were scientists assigned by Climate Feedback to assess Stossel's claims. Says they agreed to speak with Stossel on the record. So they actually agreed to speak with him. Both reviewers admitted, remarkably, that they never even viewed Stossel's videos. Now, he was talking about the California wildfires. That's what he's talking about. They said they didn't even view it. One reviewer, a climate scientist named Zeke Hosfather, even conceded that after he viewed the video in Stossel's video, the context of Stossel's video, though, the content, there we go, no retakes here, content of Stossel's video, that he had clearly discussed both forest management and climate change as causes of the wildfires. So what he, in that video, you can go and watch it yourself, it's Stossel's video, you have to really search for it now, that he discussed that why it was so bad is probably due to the forest management not cleaning up, not doing things like that, and then he even states that climate change has exacerbated the issue. But they labeled it as provably false, or as false video, and they hadn't even watched it. So they automatically slapped a sticker on it and saying it was false, and there was nothing they could do. Now, on his second one, Stoncil went after the other group, because again, Facebook tries to wash their hands of it and says we don't do the fact checking. But I'm gonna come back to Facebook here in a second, and I'll give you their court case as well. He challenged them on their false attributions and labels. The defendant's reviewers explained, this is in the court case, that the judgment was based on the defendant's displeasure of his tone of speech and what it allegedly implied and the broader claims it was exploring rather than any false facts. You see, the problem was it didn't even have anything to do with his facts. It was given, that one was given the label missing context. That's a very famous one. Missing context. That is what they're really after. They can just slap that on. Now, as I said, Facebook has for a while, they claimed that their fact checkers were true, but when they've been pressed into this, now this went all the way to the court, Facebook made an admission, and we need to be careful with this. They made an admission. So here's the actual document. The actual document here. It says they argued that the labels themselves are neither false nor defamatory. To the contrary, they constitute protected opinions. That's really what they're after. They constitute protected opinions. I'm going to go back to that document in a second. So what he was charging them with was defamation because his videos lost revenue and he lost credibility because of these false things. So Facebook came back and said, and that's what they're saying here, is they're actually saying that the labels themselves, they're not false or defamatory. Why? To the contrary, they're protected opinion. Now, here's the actual defense lawyer for Facebook, for Meta. Beyond this threshold, Section 230, the Section 230 problem, the complainant also fails to state a claim for defamation. For one, Stossel fails to plead facts establishing that Meta acted with actual malice. Again, remember, Meta is Facebook. They just changed their name. Which, as a public figure, he must. For another, Stossel's claim, and then there's highlighted here, claim focuses on fact-checked articles written by Climate Feedback. So they're passing the buck. And this is not the labels affixed through the Facebook platform. He says the labels themselves are neither false nor defamatory. To the contrary, look what it says, they constitute protected opinion. And even if Stossel could attribute Climate Feedback's separate web pages to Meta, the challenge statements on those pages are likewise neither false nor defamatory. Any of these failures would doom Stossel's complaint, but the combination makes any amendment futile. Facebook admits there they constitute protected opinion, which means every time Facebook puts a label on a story, every time they put a label saying it's false, missing context, true, or whatnot, what they deem in that aspect, that is Facebook's or Meta's opinion. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that if they label something false, that it is false. It doesn't mean that if it's labeled missing context, that it's actually missing context. But there's something else going on here. So what else is going on? Well, here's the thing. Facebook's own writings says each time a fact checker rates a piece of content as false, Facebook significantly reduces the content's distribution. We, they say, apply a warning label that links to the fact checker's article disproving the claim, but they may or they may not. But notice that it's stating that it significantly reduces the content distribution. So what is it really about? It's not about the truth. It's not about facts. It's not about the figures. It's not about the science. It's about controlling the narrative. And so this is what happens. And you can see this happening. This is what happens in our news articles. One of the things I haven't talked about is the Freedom Convoy that's happening in Canada, where a lot of the news media is reporting one side of it. Let's take, for example, a statue that was vandalized in some aspects. One news article and covered it by saying, look at how evil these people are, look at these extremists, they're all extremists that are there, they're damaging properties. Then one of the others, Global News, I'm going to give them props for this, they decided to cover it back up, and it's like where the convoy saying, no, we didn't do this, they're fringe elements that we don't agree with, that we want rid of, we don't agree with them. And not only that, the convoy cleaned up the statues and started guarding them. So it's all about controlling a narrative. And so when you trust the Facebook narratives, what you're really saying is, I'm building the foundation of what I believe, the foundation of what I hold is true, on them, and them saying what's right and wrong, what they're saying is true and false. But I'm showing you, even from their own mouths, they've put into legal document that their statements are not facts, they're opinions. And therefore they're controlling a narrative. This is why it's so important to build a foundation on an absolute truth. Because once you have that truth, then everything else gets checked by it. But the fact checkers, they're not fact checkers. They're opinions. They make their own opinions. They have their own bias. It's just a bias in another way. So don't trust the fact checkers. Search both sides, ignore the labels, and then see what holds true. Because only a firm foundation will always be proven true. Hey, I just want to thank you for watching. If you like the content, want to subscribe, like, tell a friend, get the word out. Also, if you want more content, you can follow me on YouTube, on Rumble, or you can even download the Foundation with Steve Teed podcast and Take Me on the Go, found on almost all podcast apps. This couldn't happen without you, and I encourage you, build on a strong foundation.